Hey, good afternoon. How y'all doing? It is Well Red Beard. We are here for Beard on King episode 1. I'm going to start the process of going back through all of King's work, doing some of it audiobook. I mean, I've read, his first 40 or 45 or 50 books or whatever it was. There's some stuff here in the last 10 years that I haven't done, but I want to go back and start over and kind of revisit all those feelings I had as a kid, revisit all those places in Maine and other places that he took me as a kid, all the bad guys, all the different things. So here we are. I did Billy Summers in the last couple weeks, and we're going to talk about it today. But then we're going to go back. I started Carrie earlier in the year, got about halfway through it, and kind of cut out. But I'm going to finish that one, and I'm actually doing Salem's Lot now, his second novel. I will probably do a chronological read of the novels, is what I'm thinking. I don't know if I'll do the Bachman stuff or save that for later. I don't think I'll go into like the short stories. I might do those in another type of segment. I don't know. I think I'm going to stick to the novels, things that'll work well in audiobook um, for me. So stories that I think are fairly fresh in my head. I mean, at least the gist of them, and then I just need like a little refresher on so I can record my thoughts. But that's where we're at. We're gonna do Beard on King, hopefully. I mean, I have had some false starts before. I've started some projects and not gone through with them. But I mean, ultimately, I read a lot of independent small press horror. You guys know this. If you watch my videos and I have your book, I'm not doing this to take away from that. I'm really planning on making these my audio books. So, and I don't do a lot of independent small press and audio because I'm not very good at audio. So, this is mostly for reread type stuff. But I did do Billy Summers, and this is his latest book. It's the first King book I've read in a while. Like I have not done at least the last five or six, maybe even longer. I mean, I didn't do the Institute. I didn't do If It Bleeds, which I think is a short story collection. But I did do the first 40 or 50 books. I mean, I caught up as a young man and got to the point where, if it came out, I was picking it up and reading it pretty much immediately. So that's where we're at. So this is Billy Summers by Stephen King, and it's about Billy Summers. And he is a ex-military sniper who has become a hitman for the mob. I mean, it feels like the mob. It feels smaller than the mob, though. But he's definitely a hitman, and he's. It feels like he's in his golden years as far as that job goes. Like he's on his way out, but he's accepted this last job, this last hit. It's a $2 million job, and I think he's cutting out after that. That's the gist, and he is at a place where he's letting his humanity in a lot more than he ever has before. I mean, he moves into a neighborhood. His front or whatever, his disguise is that he's a writer, and he's always wanted to write. He's always enjoyed reading, which is the funny thing because he's got this false identity that he's always played in front of, you know, the people hiring him, and that's he's a dummy. He's a hell of a shot. He can follow the rules. He can, keep quiet, disappear when he needs to, whatever. But he's not very smart. But the real Billy Summers is a reader, and there are a lot of cool bits about books in this book, and I love that. I love bits about other books in books. There are a lot of authors that are briefly touched, a lot of books, but a lot of it focuses on Emile Zola, which I'm not too familiar with. I have not read much, if any, of Emile Zola's work. I think that's right. I hope I don't mess that up. I'm going to look that up after this video. I will not be reshooting those. So Emile Zola, but a lot of cool bits about books in here. So anyway, he's not as dumb as he's made out to his employers. He also, so like I said, he's kind of letting his humanity come through a bit more than he ever has. He's moved in this neighborhood. He's acclimating to the area so that everything he has to do to work his way up to this shot, none of it's expected or none of it's telegraphed, and he's having barbecues with neighbors in the backyard and being invited over to dinner and playing Monopoly with the neighbor kids, and he's for the first time in his life he's letting himself do those things, and he's kind of got the feeling that in doing so he's going to make mistakes. In doing so he's going to overlook certain important pieces of completing the job and getting out of town the right way, and things like that. And so that's the first half of the book. And I'm not going to really tell you much about what happens, but in order for there to be a second half of the book, we have to assume that on some level he succeeds, on some level he does or doesn't go through with the job, and gets out. So he's on his way out, and he's at like a temporary place where he's staying, like before he actually exits the region, exits the area, and he's there. And one night, outside the window of the place he's staying, he witnesses some dudes basically dump a girl, dump her. She's still alive. She has been brutally, severely raped, and he again, battles back and forth with, it's not my problem. It's not my problem. But ultimately, his humanity, that is more and more invading his life, takes over, and he takes her in, and well, I mean, first to keep her from dying of exposure and whatever, but he takes her in, and they build a relationship that carries us into the second half of the book. Now, she's a young girl. He is I don't actually remember exactly how old Billy Summers is. I want to say he's late 40s to mid 50s, somewhere in there, and the book may tell you. Again, I'm not super detail oriented when it comes to these books, but he takes her in, and we stay together through the second half of the book. Now, um, ultimately, he, you know, there's some payback that happens. He's, for the guys that raped her, also for the guys that have are after him. He's on the run because he's after the situation with the final hit. Things don't go as planned, and he's somewhat on the run for that. So the second half of the book is really about revenge for her and revenge for him. Now, one thing I will say is that there were feelings that came out of Elevation, about the book Elevation, about the young lesbian couple and the aging white man that had to step in and save the day. And I may be speaking out of turn. I cannot tell you exactly what those feelings were and exactly what my issues were with that book. It's been a while, but I did feel some of those issues here. Do not get me wrong. This girl is on the street, abandoned, in real danger, and he takes her in and helps her. But there was this feeling of similarity there, about the aging white man needing to save the day. And I'm not trying to put something in there that isn't there, but I did feel that. Now, the other part is that when we're going after this revenge, we take a girl who has been raped, brutally raped, and put her in a situation, almost like a bait type situation, and that felt necessary to the story, but definitely some shit, cringe, type stuff, as far as that goes. So there's really two halves to the book. What I, normally a lot of the Stephen King books that I love, they really center around a place, and for me, that place is generally my favorite character in the book. I mean, for example, the Overlook Hotel and The Shining, the Jerusalem's Lot and Salem's Lot. I mean, there there are big ties to specific places. This one, you know, um, was not that way. I mean, we move around some. The places that we're at, they don't necessarily seem to really matter more so than the characters. Another thing, a lot of the Stephen King books that I love, there are big sprawling books with a shit ton of characters, like a lot of characters and a lot of character buildup. Like I said, I am in Salem's Lot, and I'm probably 4 or so hours into it, and we have met an absolute ridiculous amount of characters. And there's been for a book that I remember, being absolutely in love with, and would probably tell you it's definitely in my top 5 Stephen King books. There has been a lot of slow build up, and this one didn't feel that way. I mean, really, we're talking about 2.5, 3 major characters, and we spend the entire story with him. There's a bit of back and forth because again, his cover is that he's a writer. He's writing a book about his time in Vietnam, and so there's a bit of back and forth there. Now, what I would tell you is I cared less about the Vietnam pieces than I did about the real life pieces. I can't say that that's normal with me, because the Vietnam stuff should have Vietnam. It should have been hyper exciting just based on the subject matter of what was going on. But really, when we went into those parts about him writing, I just wanted to come back out. Now, there are some bits in his early writing about his childhood, and that shit is rough, and it's the closest part of the book that the closest to being horror part of the book. I mean, most of the book is not horror. I don't think you can consider this horror. I think it's a crime book. It's a thriller. But the stuff about his early life, and most importantly, his sister, was some horrific shit. And the ties that I think he feels, when he meets the girl, the character later on, to his sister, I think that stuff is I don't know. I enjoyed that link. I thought it was, I guess, almost perfect. So the first half of the book, building up to the hit, I did not like it as much as the second half of the book with the found girl and the revenge parts. Definitely enjoyed the second half of the book more so than the first. I think a lot of people feel the same way. At least that's the feeling I got based on what I read about it. But that's the gist. My favorite parts about the book: the Overlook Hotel. Yes, the Overlook Hotel is in this thing. Well, kind of. I mean, they're staying at a spot late in the book, and from if you hike up the mountain from where they're at, you can see the clearing where the Overlook existed, and they talk about it a little bit about how it was reputed to be haunted, and one character actually sees it in the rain at one point, but when they look back, it's gone. Like sees the hotel, when really it's just the charred remainders of the burnt down place. But there's also a little cabin where Billy goes to write while he's kind of waiting at this same location, and on the wall there is a painting of hedge animals. So there are real links here to The Shining and The Overlook, and that stuff I absolutely loved. And again, between this book and between watching Midnight Mass, which yes I know it's not Stephen King, but those two things together really really like piqued me as far as nostalgia goes and wanting to go back. So this has been Billy Summers. I think if I was going to rate this book, I'm probably 3.5. I don't know. I'll make my decision before I put a few words on Goodreads and link to this. I mean, it's not my favorite as far as standalone sitting down and reading it, but for what it did for me, for what it had made me feel, and wanting to go back to the rest of them again, for that I would have to give it 5. But I think, yeah, probably about 3.5 stars. Didn't like the first half that much. Enjoyed the second half. Loved the nostalgia for the Overlook and the Shining and all that. So this is Billy Summers by Stephen King. Probably around 3.5 stars. This has been Well Read Beard. This has been my little book review, Beard on King, episode 1. Now episode 2, we're going to go all the way back to the beginning. Hey, I hope you're enjoying all your books as much as I am. If not, you're reading the wrong damn books.